Yeah, that is why companies are moving toward AWS. Okay. Now, as I told you that AWS offer many services. These are some of the services offered by AWS, which are IAM, which is Identity and Access Management Service. So this is the service, and it is the most important service that is provided by AWS because it handles the management of the users and their permissions. And in this, the practical that I am going to showcasing, it will be primarily focused on the IAM, which is Identity and Access Management Service itself. Then we have EC2 service, which is Elastic Compute Cloud, which provides users to run virtual computers in the cloud. Again, cloud is nothing, just data centers that is handled by AWS. Then we have S3, which is Simple Storage Service, which provides you or companies to manage their data and store their data, again with AWS. Then we have RDS, which is the database service provided by AWS. Lambda, which provides server computing. Then we have VPC, which is virtual private cloud. Basically, it's an isolated network that is in the cloud, and that is allocated only to you. And in that network, you will run your instances, you will have your storage capacities, things like that. So that is VPC is. Yeah. So these are not the only services provided by AWS. There are about there are more than 200 services that are offered by AWS. These are some of the major ones that are actively used in day-to-day basis. Okay. Now, when it comes to AWS hacking, as I told you that most of the engagement that we are getting, they are primarily AWS as well as Azure. So it shows that companies are have their cloud providers fixed, and they are using AWS and Azure. Again, right now in the market, AWS is the one that is leading the pack, but as per my experience, I think Azure is going to go over AWS as well in the future year. But again, AWS is in good hands, so you don't have to worry about AWS. Again, so when we talk about AWS hacking, basically, as we are pen tester, I will be talking in terms of AWS penetration testing. Again, hacking is a nice term, that's why I have used it as well here. But again, what is penetration testing? Penetration testing is nothing but hacking, but with proper authorization. So both are same thing, but with authorization. That is what pen testing is. Again, when we talk about hacking AWS, we are not looking for any 0 days in their environments. We are not looking for any public exploits that are present in the AWS infrastructure itself. What we are looking at, we are generally looking at AWS misconfigurations. Again, as I told you, the main service that is being offered by AWS is the IAM service, and most of the misconfigurations are happening in that service only, which is Identity and Access Management. I think most of the, and this is one of the applications or the service, if you are able to find any misconfigurations, you are going to easily hack AWS environments. Again, generally the focus is on AWS, IAM, S3, EC2, and many more services. Again, there are two types of AWS hacking. One is white box hacking and black box hacking. That's what is standardized in the market right now. So let me start with black box hacking or testing. So in black box, you will not get any access to the client's AWS environment. You will just get a client name, and you have to use your OSINT capabilities, and you have to maybe hack their web applications or anything publicly available to get their access keys. Again, if you just start learning about AWS hacking, you will find blogs where written that you can easily find AWS keys on GitHub. You can easily find AWS keys on dark web, things like that. But again, in my experience, I have not found that much luck with that. Again, this black box testing is also it also takes a lot of time. So again, it is a overhead for the companies to invest this much time for black box testing, because it costs a lot to them. Then comes the white box testing, where company will give two types of access. If they want to audit, they will give us a read-only access and security audit access in the environment. And if they want a pen test, in that scenario, they will just hand out the keys of a normal user that is working in their company. So that is white box testing it. Again, since in white box testing, we don't have to find any keys, because you never know there are the high chances that their keys are not at all exposed. So, and if you are working for a black box testing, the testing will be over because you have not tested anything, because you are the entire time you are just your entire time you have wasted on finding the keys which are already not there or might not be there. So that's why companies are opting white box testing, where they will give you credentials and then you can start your testing from there. Now you are inside the environment, and then you will find all the misconfigurations that are present in their environment. So that's what the general trend right now is in AWS hacking. Some companies who have the budget, they go for black box testing, but the SMEs or like the small and medium sized companies, they are generally targeting white box pen test. You can say that for AWS. So now let's see how this IAM service works. Okay. So let's suppose we have a user, and these are the services or resources that they want to access. Okay. So now whenever user wants to access a service or a resource, they have to go through this IAM service. So in this IAM service, all the permissions are defined. Based on the permissions, the IAM service allows or disallows access to the AWS services or resources. Again, these services or resources are EC2, Lambda, RDS, things like that. Okay. So that's why IAM is one of the core services used by AWS. Now let's look at the IAM identities. So for that, let me do one thing. Let me show you things so that it will be easier to follow. Let me show you things practically. So that's what a IAM dashboard looks like to a normal user. So here we can search for the services, and we can see that there are some of the recently visited services here. But as you can see that if I just these are some of the major services which are S3, EC2, IAM. And if I want to go to see any service, I can in the search bar I can search for IAM. Again, as I told you, IAM, which is Identity Access and Management Service, manages users, groups, roles. It manages these identities, plus it manages the permissions for these identities as well. So what are the three major identities which are your users? As you can see, these are the users. Again, users are your normal day-to-day users, or it can be applications as well. Then we have groups. Groups basically when you want a set of users, when you want to give a permission to a set of users, what you do? You create a group, assign the permission to that group, and then every user in that group will inherit those permissions. So that's what a group is in AWS. Then we have roles. So roles is one of the most confused identity in my experience. Even when I was starting out, I didn't know what exactly a role is. So I will try to make this understand in a simple fashion. So basically, role is the identity, and into that identity we will assign permissions. Now this identity holds the permissions, and when any other identity assumes this role, then they will inherit those permissions. You got the idea? Okay. So that's what a role is in simple terms. So why roles are used in AWS exactly? Why not user? We go for roles because there are times when you want to give permissions to a service. Service can be EC2 service or S3 service. So at that time you cannot just assign a user to that service. In that scenario, what you do? You create a role for that service, not for the service. Just create a generic role which has the actions that that role will allow, and then you will assign the permissions, and then to that S3 service you will assign the role, and when the role is assigned to that service, now service holds those permissions. So that's what a role is, and that's how we allocate roles to different services and resources in AWS. So these are some of the roles here. Now, okay, let me go back. Yeah. So again, these are the three main identities in AWS. Now let's talk about the types of access keys. There are two access keys in AWS. The first one is the long-term key, which provides long-term access. These are not expired readily. or automatically. So generally these access keys are assigned to users and applications. So you might write this access key in your code, which is again a bad practice. Don't do that, because in our pen tests or engagements we have seen some open shares, and from that open shares we can just we have found the we have found these keys in those shares, and we have found keys of the high privilege users, even the root users. So again, but yeah, AWS has this. But if you want to go in a secure way, then you can opt for short-term keys, which are keys that that provide limited access to AWS services for a short duration, which is typically 15 minutes to 36 hours. So there are two types of keys. So let me try to show you here. Okay. So as I told you, the long-term keys are assigned to users. So if I open any of the users, let me open this pentest user here. If I go to security credentials, yeah. So if you see, there is already a key assigned to this user. Again, this is just a key ID, not the actual key. If I show you actual keys, you can just access these keys and you get the permissions of these users. So that's the long-term key. Short-term key, you can't see it, but generally these roles will have the short-term keys. Again, you can't see it right in the dashboard, but I will show you how you can get those keys as well and abuse them. So these are the two types of keys in AWS. Okay, you can see that. Okay, now let's learn about IAM identity permission policies. So how AWS defines which users to allow what permissions and which users are not allowed to access which resource, right? So this is all done using IAM identity permission policies. So these are basically JSON documents where you will allocate the allow or deny permissions, and this is how it will look like. If you can see on my screen, that's what a policy statement looks like. So in IAM, what we do, we create these policy statements with the permissions. So let me show you how you can read this. First, we have the version, which is by default set to 2012. It shows that they have not changed from 2012 because it is working quite well for them. Then we have a statement which defines the permission itself. First, we have the SID, which is called the statement ID, which is just a description of this policy statement. Then we have the effect, whether this policy allows something or denies something. We can put it in the effect part, which is allow or deny. In this case, it is set to allowed. Then we have the set of actions. So what actions we can perform with this policy document. Then we have the resource itself, which defines on which resources we can perform this action. So in simple terms, let me just go through this in brief. So basically, let's suppose if I apply or attach this permission policy to a user, then that user will have these actions on these resources. Okay, so they will, since it is set to allowed, it means they will be able to perform these actions on these resources. In this case, it is the resources are S3 buckets. Buckets are just like a folder where you can put your files. So if these permissions are applied, it means they can list, get, put and delete all the resources in this bucket. Okay, so that's how you read a IAM policy statement. I hope this is clear to you. Then we have types of IAM policies. So there are two types of IAM policies. The first one is the managed policies. Then we have inline policies. So managed policies are the ones which can be shared among different users. So let's suppose we create a permission and we want that permission to be attached to multiple users, and at that time we can opt for managed policies. There are two types of managed policies, which are AWS managed policies. So these are the policies or permissions which are pre-built by AWS that we can use. Then we have customer managed policies, in which a customer can create permissions according to their need. And then we have inline policies. So inline policies are the policies which are tied to a single identity. They cannot be shared. So that's what policies are. Let me just show you as well. As I can go in these policies, you will see these policies, and here I can apply the filter. I think all of them will be, since it is a new environment I just created, so all of them will be AWS managed policies. But as a customer, if I want to create any policy, I can just create it. Here is the option to create a policy. And as I told you, there are inline policies as well, which are assigned directly to a identity. So let me show you if I have any. So if I go to support user here, okay, not this user, maybe let me go for a role. Okay. Again, as you can see, the first one, it is written admin. Let me try to make this bigger for you. Okay. So to this IAM identity, which is called EC2 IAM role, we have two policies attached. First one is the administrator access policy. If this policy is attached to any of the identity, it means that user or identity has every access in their environment. They are the administrator in their environment. And if you see, if we read through this policy document, it says that effect is allow, action is star, resource is star. It means we can perform any actions on any resource. That's why it is considered as an administrator access policy. And then here I created a sample policies which is called customer inline, because it is created by me as a customer, and it is inline because it is only attached to this role. I cannot attach this particular policy to any other identity. So this is how we can create permissions and assign it to users and identities in AWS. Don't worry, I'm coming to the hacking part, but I want you guys to know the basics as well. Because I am a person who learns the basics first and then jump into the hacking part. Where am I? Okay. And just the last slide here, and then we will go to the practicals. Let's talk about ARN. So ARN is like a identifier. So in AWS, these identifiers are called Amazon resource name. So it uniquely identifies a resource or a group of resources. So this is the format it follows. So first we have the ARN itself, the name, then the partition. Partition is most of the time it is set to AWS, and in some few cases it is set to AWS China. We know why that, because they want a separate AWS for them. Then we have the service, which is the name of the service, which can be example here EC2, S3, Lambda, etc., etc. Then we have the region in which that service is. The region can be US East 1, which is North Virginia region. It can be AP South 1, which is Mumbai region, so on. Then we have the account ID, that is the account ID assigned to the AWS account. Then finally the resource ID, which is the ID of that particular resource. So this is how we uniquely identify a resource in AWS globally. Okay, now you know what AWS is, what are the different services provided by AWS, and you have learned the most important AWS service, which is Identity Access and Management Service. So that's what we are going to be exploiting in this session. Okay, so let's go to the practicals quickly. So I will show you my methodology, how I enumerate AWS environments. Again, I am a big fan of manual testing, but sometimes use automation testing as well if I have limited time. So how we start, right? So first we get a set of credentials which are generally read-only or security audit access credentials. In AWS term, these are called keys from a client. So now we have some keys. So I have already configured these keys. Let me show you how we can configure it. So we can configure it using AWS configure. Okay. Cool. And then we set the key IDs, secret access, the secret access key itself, region, and so on. Once I just set up, it is very simple to set up. So I will show you how you can set up as well in the later time. But right now I already have set up a initial access user, which is just a pentest user, which has read-only access and security audit access in the AWS environment. When I say read-only, it means that they can read attributes of other resources in AWS. They cannot write, they cannot update, they cannot delete, but we will see how we can exploit that as well. Even the read access we can exploit. So yeah, so how do we start? So again, we have plethora of AWS services. So what we do, since it's a manual testing, we go through each service one by one. So we will start with maybe we start with EC2 service first, try to find anything interesting there. We go for S3 service, try to find anything interesting there. We go for Kubernetes cluster service, we try to find anything interesting there. A Docker service as well. Lambda service as well. There are many services we go through. So again, to speed up this process, since I created this lab, I know where the vulnerability is and basically where the misconfiguration is. So there is a service in AWS called Systems Manager Service, which lets users to create parameters, and in those parameters we can store secrets. Generally, people think that these secrets are encrypted. That's what AWS says as well. So let's see how we can enumerate and see and basically get those credentials. So as again, AWS CLI is very easy to use. So that's why doing manual testing with AWS is very simple. So again, AWS is the tool name. Then service name is called SSM, which is I guess Security Manager Service or Systems Manager Service. I think, yeah, it's Systems Manager Service. Then we can go for describe the parameters. Since we have read access, we can describe the parameters. Profile is the user with which I want to access this particular service. As I said that I have created a pentest user and provided that user read privileges. So that's the profile I have to give, which is pentest, profile, pentest, and then I have to give a region name. Again, we have to go through each region because we don't know in which region the clients are storing their secrets. So the region I know for sure is US East 1. Okay, I think again, if you see, though I typed wrong module here, it has given me the correct flag actually. If you see, that's why I said that AWS CLI is very helpful. Trust me, I did not intentionally type it wrong, just to show. Okay. So as I run this command, it shows me that there are two parameters. The first one is EC2 creds admin. Then I have some prod RDS US, that's the name of the parameter. Then that's the ARN. By now you know what ARN is. Type is secure string, that is what it is supposed to be. And if you see closely here, it is said alias AWS SSM. So it means that this parameter or the value of this parameter is secured using this key ID, right? So that's what customers of AWS also thinks like that, and they think that it is encrypted and secure. But by default, any read user can access these keys and decrypt the parameter value itself. And how we know that we are able to do that? Because if you see alias AWS SSM, if you see this key alias, it means that the keys are managed by AWS, and by default every user which has read permissions can access these keys and decrypt it. Similar thing for that as well. This is another parameter. So let's try to decrypt it. Okay, I hope I remember the commands correctly here. AWS SSM get, this time get parameter. I think that, let's go for EC2 creds/admin. Any idea why I chose this one, not this one? Just by looking at this? Not exactly. Anybody else? Look closely there. Maybe you find something interesting. Okay. So the actual reason is because I happen to be just put credentials in this one and not this one. That is the only reason. There are no other reasons here. Okay. Okay. So let's go for this one because I know for sure that there are some credentials there. Okay. So what we can do here? Let me just copy it. Now, can someone help me write this command? Okay. So I think it is maybe name. Okay, let's go with name. Basically I was just remembering the commands when Prince was giving the session. Okay, so the name I believe it is this one, the ARN, and profile again we will give the pen test user, and then the what was the last flag in the previous command? Tarak will give you a code here. So anyone? Who here didn't have the code right as of now? Maybe we can stand up. So what is the, can you see the screen? What is the flag here? Yeah. So Tarak, please hand over the flag, that code please. Okay. So region is US East 1. Okay. Yeah, that's why don't hesitate. You are going to give the correct answers only here. Okay. So yeah, because okay, as you can see that we have the parameter here, but again if you see, it is given me some encrypted value here, right? I don't know what this encrypted value is. Okay, so my question to you guys here is, before that, Tarak, how many codes we have left here? We have, right? Okay, again guys, this code is for iOS hacking bootcamp that is going to be in the coming month. But again, if you already know about iOS, then maybe you can hand over that code to someone who is in need, or someone who is looking for mobile application pen testing, who wants to learn mobile application pen testing. Okay, so how we can decrypt it? So we have some encrypted value. How we can decrypt it? So there is a simple flag called with the decryption. Okay, so if I hit enter here, as you can see, I easily get the value here. Again, customers of AWS or the client thinks that this string is secure in nature. It is also saying that it is a secure string, but not so secure if you see here. Okay, we can easily decrypt it using just AWS command line. Okay, now we know for sure that there is a EC2 user who has this particular password, and as we can see here, we are just getting the hints from this parameter itself. It is saying that it is EC2 creds. Again, looks like it is the credentials to access a EC2, and we have a EC2 user here, and we have a password as well. Generally, the clients have a habit to name the things based on the service itself. Now we have a user, and then we have a password. So how can we log in? Anyone? How can we log in using this credential? What do we want to log in? Anyone? No. So let's suppose you have a computer. It is hosted on cloud somewhere. You have the credentials to that computers. What do you need? But for RDTP, what do you need? Yeah, so you need IP. So we know for sure, did Om got the code or not? Om, you won the code. What was that joke? Let me remember. Something or like na, कि मैं जीत गया something like that. Someone here? No. हाँ, मेरी सिलेक्शन हो गई. Yeah, so that's the reaction I got from Om here. Okay, मेरी सिलेक्शन हो गई. Okay. Yeah, looks like Om is watching lots of Pakistani soap operas, right? I think. Okay, anyways. Because that joke was from that. That's why I was saying that. Anyway, so we know we have a user, we have a password. Now we want to get a IP. And again, which service we are going to target? Again, EC2 is a service which provides virtual machines. So we need a IP of a virtual machine. So this time, which service we are going to enumerate? Person in the blue t-shirt. Yeah. So we have users, we have some credentials, and which service we are going to enumerate now? Yeah, that's right. Tarak, one code, please to him. Okay. Okay. So again, don't worry, no one is a loser here. Okay, everybody will win something here. Okay, that's the beauty of FOXXCON. No one will go empty-handed. Maybe someone will go with some hope if they don't get a coupon code. Okay. Now we need a IP here. So let's search for it. So this time we are going to enumerate the EC2 service. Again, it is very simple in AWS, then the name of the service EC2 and describe instances. And then let me just copy paste. Again, I am not a good typing expert here, so I will just copy paste. Okay. I think that's good. So we are now enumerating the instances from the that are present in the EC2 service. Again, which profile we are going to use? Pentest. That's the region in which the instances are. Why I chose this region? Any idea why I chose this region? Because I just wanted to, that's why. There is no other reason. I could have just launched it anywhere. Okay, it doesn't matter. Every region is same in AWS. Okay. So as you can see, when I try to enumerate this EC2 instance, there is some information about the owner ID. This is the account in which the service is hosted. Some reservation ID we are not interested in. What we are interested in, let me see. So as I told you, we are interested in IP. So I hope the instance is not down right now. Okay, so it's up. So we have a private IP and then we have public IP. Okay. So which IP I am going to use to access that service? And this system is not in the private network. Yeah, of course, that is correct. Again, hands up. Yeah. Looks like you know more than many of the students here. Not here, but in your colleges. Okay. Now, let me try to, again, let me try to find some more information. Okay. Even I don't know what I am looking for, but I am just going through it. Maybe I can find some things here. Okay. So, based on my experience, let me go through this once again and then answer that. Okay. Basically what I am looking here, whether this instance has operating system as Windows or some Linux based. Okay. So if it is Linux based, I can directly SSH into the system. If it is Windows based, I will try to RDP. But again, based on my experience, if I see this root device name, it's generally a Linux system. Okay. Yeah. So let's try to SSH into the system. Yeah, where you saw that? Yeah. So that's what I was looking for. But yeah, a nice catch. Okay. So now, since I know for sure that is a Linux based system. Now what I can do to be more sure, I can enumerate the security groups for that particular instance. So what security groups are? Security groups are like firewalls that are assigned to EC2 instances. So they block or allow traffic. Since we have less time, I am not going to enumerate. I am directly going to SSH into this box. But again, we can easily enumerate that as well. Which port is open on that IP address. So what I can do, I can just SSH and let me just copy paste here. Okay. So that's the name of the user and then the password. Let me just copy the password here. Copy it and then okay, let me copy this first. Okay, now I need a password and I have the password for this service. Now I can just copy paste this, copy paste, hit enter. So yeah, I am in a EC2 instance. So basically this is how again our enumeration started from basic AWS services. We found a system managed service. In that service stores the parameters, and in those parameters are used to store the secrets. And again, why companies chose parameters? Because they can easily, in their application code, they can call out that parameter, get the value, and then make their code work to access something. Okay, so that is the whole purpose of SSM parameters. But there are other if you are opting for SSM parameters, what I would suggest, you create your own key and then decrypt or encrypt the parameter value using that. That way it will be secure. But again, it takes time and expertise to do that. That's why people directly chose AWS keys. Okay. Now we have access to this EC2 instance. Now what we can do with this instance? Anyone know about Capital One hack? Anyone? Okay, so there was a hack that happened around 2018, and that abused the IMDS service of a EC2 instance. Okay, basically they found a web application, and that web application was hosted on a EC2 instance, and that web application had a vulnerability called server-side request forgery. So basically, using that server-side request forgery, you can access tokens or security keys that are assigned to the EC2 instance. Okay, so yeah, so because of that hack, Capital One, the company, lost millions of dollars just because of single vulnerability. And again, the vulnerability or the issue was in the AWS EC2 instance as well. So AWS was also the culprit there. Yeah, so now what AWS did, they secured that part. So the initial version of the IMDS service which was secure called IMDS version 1, and guess what, the next IMDS service was version 2. Okay, so AWS implemented IMDS version 2 and they make that default for a EC2 instance, but still they by default now all the systems use IMDS version 2, but as an option, you can still opt for IMDS version 1. Sorry, I would say you use IMDS version 1 if you are for sure that your application is not vulnerable to SSRF vulnerability. Okay. Now, so how as I told you that in AWS we define roles. In those roles we define permissions, right? And let's suppose there is I'm just going through a scenario. Let's suppose there is a service called EC2 service, and this EC2 is just a virtual machine. And let's suppose our data is present in the S3 service, and then this EC2 service wants to access some data. It needs to have some permissions, right? And from where it will get the permissions? Basically by assuming the role which has these permissions. Okay, so how do we know whether this service has assigned a role or not? We are going to see that. But if a service assumes a role, it will get a temporary credentials that we can directly fetch from here and exploit it. Okay. So how we can do that? Again, let me try to write it down. So we can use curl command to access. Again, in IMDS version, they have included a token as a security. So first you have to get the token, and using that token you can get the credentials. So how we can get the token? So let me show you the endpoint, which is instance metadata endpoint. It starts with HTTPS 169.254.169.254. So that's the instance metadata endpoint. What is instance metadata endpoint? As the name suggests, this endpoint stores information or metadata information about an instance itself. What are the metadata, like what is the IP address of this machine, what is the private IP, what is the instance ID assigned to this machine, what are the volumes attached to this machine. So this kind of information can be retrieved from this particular endpoint. Okay, so as I told you, first we want the token. So the address, the path, URL path is API latest API/token, and then let me give you the not give you anything here. The headers. Sometimes I talk to myself. So header is capital X AWS EC2 metadata token TTL seconds, and it is set, generally it is by default is set to 21600. Everyone knows it, so that's what I am going to assume here. Okay, Looks like it is correct. Then we will provide the method called put method using the X flag, and then do a echo here so that the output will be visible in the next line. And as you can see, I got a access token. As I told you, using this access token, I can basically call the other APIs to get the access credentials. So that's what I am going to do here. Let me just copy it. Okay, copy. Again, it is curl http 169.254 latest, and then the endpoint is metadata. Okay, and then the header we will provide as it's x AWS EC2 metadata token, and then the token itself, which I just copied, and I can just give a echo command just to see the output in from the next line. I hope everything looks good here. Yeah, as you can see, I have some more folders or directories here that I can go into. Again, the one that I am interested in is the IAM one, because it stores the credentials. Okay, so again, now what I have to do, just I have to add the path here. So /IAM. Now there are two paths. Any guesses which one should I go for? Okay, yeah, that's correct. Let's go for this one. And yeah, so there is it is giving me a role. So basically, using this role, by taking this role, I can assume I can get to the credentials that are assigned to this role. Again, these are temporary credentials valid for 15 minutes. So I will so as you know that this temporary credentials by default is set for 15 minutes. So I think that's the time I am going to take now. So let me just copy it, because I have to do it under 15 minutes. Now I can just give this what is this, the role here, and I can get the access key ID, secret access key plus the token itself. Now I can use this token. Basically, when I use this token, I have the permissions that are assigned to the admin EC2 role here. Okay, so let's try to set the credentials here. So as I told earlier that I will show you how you can configure this. So let me try to configure this right now. I will use some other tab. So it is AWS configure key ID. Let me just copy paste. Okay, before that, let me show you. So let me do one thing. Let's give this. Let's create a profile so that these credentials will be assigned to that profile. So profile we can give as FOXXCON. Let's give it FOXXCON. Access key ID I have already copied it. Then it is asking me for secret access key. I can get it from here. Default region name, I don't want to give anything. Format, generally it's set to JSON, but again it is not necessary. So if I hit enter, okay, if I hit enter here, I have basically set this keys for the profile called FOXXCON. And when I set these credentials are saved in the directory called .aws. So let me just go there. It will be in the user default directory. So AWS / I think it is called credentials. Okay. As you can see that there are two credentials set here. First one is there are two profiles set. First one is the Pentest profile for with which I was running all the previous commands. Then I have also set up a FOXXCON credentials. Again, the first credential here is a very important thing to know if you are going to go into AWS pen testing. So again, as I told you, there are two types of credentials. The first one are the permanent credentials, then the second one, or the long-term credentials. Second one are the temporary credentials. And how do we differentiate between them? Just by looking at the ID, we know which one is permanent and which one is temporary. If it starts with AKIA, it means it is a long-term credential, and if it starts with ASIA, it means it is a short-term credential. And for short-term credentials, we need tokens as well. So let me just enter the token as well. Okay, so from where I will get the token for this particular profile again. I can get it from here itself. Okay, the value is AWS session token equals to one more thing. Generally, in my experience, I always give this token in quotes because some of the times I have seen some errors coming, so I always give this in quotes. Save this file, and now how can we know that these credentials are for that service? So it's a very simple command you can use, which is called AWS STS. Again, it's a service of AWS called Secure Token Service, and then AWS STS get the flag is get caller identity. So this is the who am I command in AWS. So AWS STS get caller identity profile I can give as FOXXCON. And as you can see here, I have assumed this role. So now I can access whatever services this role is authorized to. Okay, whatever permissions are set in this particular role, I can access those permissions because I am able to assume this role. Why I am able to assume this role? Because I have the short-term credentials of this particular role here. Okay, yeah. Now we have another set of credentials, or I can say that I have some other set of identity, right, which is a role in my case. Now we can enumerate the permissions assigned to this service, because at this point I don't know what kind of permissions are set to this particular role here. So very simple, again in AWS, you can use AWS, again which service I am going to go for, the popular one, which is IAM. And then let me just first list the roles just to showcase that it is a valid role. Profile I can give as Pentest, and then the region, I don't think region I think we need, maybe not. So what's the harm in giving that? So US East 1. Okay, looks like there are many roles available in this environment, and okay, so many I have created. Anyways, so yeah, so we have a role here. So we know for sure that there is a role with this name exists in the environment, and we now have the credential of that role. Now let's try to enumerate the permissions. How can we do that? Using AWS only. IAM sorry, IAM get, maybe get roles, no, not get roles, let me think. AWS IAM list attached role policies. As I told you that policies are attached to identities. One identity is being role, so we will look for list attached role policies to see what kind of policies attached to this particular role. Role name we can give as EC2. I think it was admin EC2 role. Let's give the profile as Pentest, and then the region, which is US East 1. Okay, again looks like some mistake here. I think I chose roles here. Again, AWS is giving me the correct flag to use, so I will use that flag. Okay, as you can see that this role is attached the administrator access policy, and I told you that this policy, if we have this policy, it means that we can do anything to any resource in AWS. Basically, we are now administrator in this AWS environment. Yeah, so this is how you guys can. This is one of the scenario I have taken from my pen test, but you guys can also use or enumerate different services. Try for lateral movement or try for privilege escalation using this misconfigurations, and become administrator in your pen tests as well. So yeah, I think any questions here? So again, the idea here is not to make you AWS guru here, AWS hacking guru. The idea here is that to showcase what you could learn in AWS, and then you can learn by yourself. Or also, by the way, I'm making a bootcamp or course for this AWS hacking as well, which is going to be live in Tarak. When it is going to be live? It is going to be live in November. Okay. So if you guys are interested in that, I would say try learning on your own. And if you're not able to learn it or understand, or you don't have the time to set up a lab and everything, you can sign up for that bootcamp. Okay. Yeah, I think that's it from me, guys.